I'm holding my power at bay. If I should show it, you cower in place. You might not know it, the boss might have told it, but you didn't listen. I'm legendary. Wow, the star in the galaxy. Highest level you gotta be. Just to try and roll with me. The monsters I fight are elite. I'm bringing the pain for this status I have trained. And I'm looting this and taking that till nothing else remains. Let's go. The world's at war. Never slayed a dragon before, but I'll behead the beast and then increase my mana to again release. The spells I got in my arsenal. And if I might be the darkest, coldest ice, I go to fight the trolls. Supreme leader of the MMO. And there's no stopping my game. I'm finding your fantasy, making that claim. The best I gotta be PvP prodigy. Feel my psychology going insane. MMO RPG, the MMO show calling me. They're coming on, my character strong, so bet I'm gonna be listening. Go.
Hello everyone, my name is Indorn and welcome to the first episode of the MMO Show podcast. We are a new podcast dedicated to everything MMO related. On tonight's show, we're going to be discussing sandbox versus theme park MMOs and also the nostalgia effect. But first, I'd like to introduce my fantastic co-hosts. I have Sarvoth and Lelina. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey.
Since we're new, I'd like to take a couple minutes and just go through kind of kindergarten style and introduce the hosts to anybody who might be watching who hasn't seen us before. So why don't we go ahead and start with Sarv.
All right, hey guys, I'm Sarvoth, also known as Chris, but Sarvoth. I haven't been Sarvoth the entire time of my gaming career. Made up the name in math class back in high school, but I started gaming a long time ago. Shadows of Eurysbius was actually my very first, I guess I would term it as a graphical mud at the time, on Imagination Network. From there, I went to Neverwinter Nights at the same time almost with other people. Majority of the gamers online then were mostly adults, like in their 40s and mid-30s, Dungeons & Dragon peeps, so I was pretty young. I remember I was like 9 or 10 years old, and I was playing off as an 18 or 19-year-old, and for what I could tell, it worked.
Now, Eusebius was pre-internet, right? Like that was dial-up
yeah,
days?
so that was dial-up, yeah, so I think it was like, I know it was a couple $100 a month if you wanted unlimited access.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a job then, right, so I had to, convince my mom to let me play the game, and she had no idea like how expensive it was. So a couple times I did get in big trouble for like huge, like $500 phone bills.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was kind of my experience with Eusebius too. Like, we got to play it for about a month, and then there was like a couple $100 bill for it or something, and then that was it.
Yeah, that
You
was
guys
it.
are lucky. That shit would not fly in my household when I was growing up. No way. I would be alive.
Well, I convinced my mom actually I said, hold up now, there's a way that we can do this. You can actually get allotted a certain amount of hours, and then when your hours are up, you can't dial back in. Well, I found out that this is how addicted I was to it. I found out that you could literally wait to the last second and just don't disconnect, and your time will continue. So I would stay on like the entire day and just don't disconnect my phone. I remember my friend came over and actually was pissed off because he wanted me to go out and like do stuff. So he disconnected my modem. And I'm not a violent person, but I did get up and I punched him, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that kind of died out for me because of the hourly cost of that. But my experiences in there were pretty good. I mean, we're talking a game that heavily, and we'll get more into this later, but heavily relied on sort of your imagination, and there was a lot of role players, but not really role playing. It's kind of like one of those like where they, it's kind of in between. You're like a character, but you're not, it's not like campy role playing, I guess is where I'm getting at, or cheesy role playing. A lot of the peeps on there went to Dark Sun Online and The Realm. I followed them around to those games. I mean, Sierra kind of lost ownership of Imagination Network, I think, to Bell or AT&T, I can't remember who bought it. And then eventually AOL bought it. I think it was because their main competitor was the Neverwinter Nights AOL, which, by the way, was also a really great game. Very D&D gold box-ish. I mean, it's like almost a clone of the gold box single-player games. I remember like the rules in it were really old. I mean, like I made like an elf wizard and I maxed out at level 7 because that's how high elf wizards went in D&D back in the day. So it's kind of hard to grasp that, but I went to, like I said, The Realm, but I think I really started, I was a big fan of the Ultima series, and I had friends. All my friends were too, more so than even me. And I was the first of my friends to get into Ultima Online, and that's a game that's dear to my heart, and it's more the nostalgia effect, like we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But you know, then I moved on to EverQuest reluctantly because everyone left UO to go to EverQuest. From EverQuest, I joined my first big gaming clan. I had been leading guilds all the way up till then. From there, with an ally with that gaming clan, we did Anarchy Online in preparation for Dark Ages of Camelot, which
That was a
relating
good game.
yeah, that was. But one of my main focuses at the time, around that time, was anticipation for a game called Shadowbane, which I ended up leading a group in the clan for Shadowbane. Shadowbane flopped. We'll get more of that later. From there, World of Warcraft, and then everything you could think of after that. So I've been through a lot of MMOs. They've changed over the years. A lot of people started off, in EverQuest. So a lot of that stuff, that free form kind of gameplay from the past, they never got to really experience. And but yeah, that's me. I'm also a guild leader. I lead. I love leading guilds. I've led this guild, the Lycian, for I don't even know how long, 13 years now.
It's a
So
long
it's
time.
it's been a long time. I mean, we're a good group of people, but yeah, it's me.
Okay. Lil, how about you up next?
Oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed because I don't have any of this cred like these guys do at all. I started playing my first MMO was EQ, and I started playing that when I think the game had only been out for 2 months. My dad got a computer and he had friends that were playing it, and I started playing EQ, and that's where I met Sarv. And I think I was in 11th grade,
Wow.
I mean, I've been gaming my whole life, but I had never even used a computer until EverQuest, which is really weird because, most people had computers then, and I was 11th grade in high school, but no.
So you're playing EverQuest and you're still learning how to use a mouse, like at
Well,
the
I
same
mean,
time.
you learn that stuff in school and stuff. Like, I knew the
Okay, all right.
basics and stuff like that, but you know what I mean? As far as like not using a controller for quote unquote gaming, that was all new to me. And, moving around with your arrow keys. I didn't even understand the concept of WASD until I think
She was a
Oblivion.
keyboard turner all the way through, like
Oh, yeah.
most.
Oh yeah. It's really embarrassing to like hotkeys. What are you talking about? I didn't know any of that shit until well into World of Warcraft. But yeah, I met Sarv, and then we eventually got together in real life, and he had me try DAOC. But our big thing was all of us getting together in WoW, and we all played that for God only knows how many years.
Yeah.
And we've tried, and all of us as a group have tried pretty much every MMO that have come out on the market since. Just everything sucks. So
There's a lot of truth to that.
yeah, and we stay in games for like I played Terra. That was a big thing. Like I played WoW, and then I don't even remember. Oh, we played Rift for a while. I think we left World of Warcraft in the middle of Old War because that got boring. We played Rift for I don't even think we played a year, and then we got sick of that, and then we went back to World of Warcraft. And then I got into Terra, and I got really into that, and I played that for a year. And
Terra's pretty much all I hear you talk about.
yeah, and the funny thing about Terra is a shit game. It's terrible, but the fucking PvP was amazing. That's the only thing we played Ion, and that was good for the most part. If you like Korean grind fest, I mean, Terra was the same way. I mean, I don't do that shit. I just want to PvP and kill people. And
Now, do you think, this is a little off topic, but do you think that if a game has good PvP, that's enough to be a saving grace for the rest of it?
I want to say yes, but because Terra was like that for me. Like everything else in the game sucked. I literally never PvE'd in the game except for they forced you to because you had to do PvE and PvP to create PvP gear. But the problem is their PvP, there was so much desync and just so many things wrong with it that a lot of the people that were really good at it actually ended up quitting, and I just kind of stuck through it. They literally had to drag me kicking and screaming out of Terra to play Final Fantasy.
Keep in mind, at one point, she didn't PvP at all. Like, she wouldn't PvP.
No, I was
Oh, really?
I was terrified of PvP in Terra. I was big chicken shit, and I can actually remember what happened. I remember because I was a priest, and I'm out like doing my dailies or something, and this warrior comes up and starts attacking me, and I'm like freaking out on TeamSpeak, like, oh, I don't know what to do, and they're like, just fucking fight him. And after 10 minutes, I killed him. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then I started PvPing more and more and more, and then I actually got pretty good at it, and yeah. But then, and the funny thing is now I really like PvP because of that. But then I play games like Final Fantasy where it's tab target. It is awful. Like the
Yeah.
PvP in Final Fantasy is fucking terrible.
Yeah.
Because of that. So I just want a game where I can PvP and actually like my character again. I want that so badly. And all the MMOs that are coming out are like, eh. So I don't know. I guess that's my my cred.
All right. Well, my name's Endorn. Like Sarv, I started off in the pre-internet days. Like I said, I had about a month of Eusebius, so I'm not even gonna count that. That was a train wreck.
You did? Oh. Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I was pretty much I had to beg and plead because the next game I played after Eusebius was Meridian 59. Which was another one of those games where you had to pay, per minute or whatever. Now it was a heck of a lot cheaper than Eusebius, so, but man, I had to just beg and plead and do whatever it took.
I remember downloading Meridian 59 and remembering how big of a game it was. I think it was like because it was everything else prior to that like you installed. Well, I think AOL you downloaded Neverwinter, but I mean it was a big game, wasn't it? I mean
Yeah.
I can't remember. It was a long download. I remember that.
Yeah, Meridian 59 was huge. I think I don't remember how many discs it was on, but it was a bunch. It was the first true. I don't want to say true 3D because EverQuest was the first 3D as far as like actually having polygons or whatever. But Meridian 59 used like I think it was a modified Wolfenstein engine or a modified Doom engine, one of the two. So it had like everything was still those little pixelated sprites. But you were moving around in a 3D world. And,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those like if you look at it any angle thing, it's a 2D sprite that moves.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a really good game. I'll talk about Meridian 59 more towards the end, but
I mean, like for example, do you consider Doom 3D?
I
So
did
Doom
at the
is
time.
It's actually not 3D. It's
Yeah.
It's all 2D. It's just 2D planes.
Well, it
It's
depends.
like
It depends how you
magic.
look at it, though, because the level is polygons.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still. Okay, the reason why it wasn't 3D is because you can't have a second floor, right? So
Yeah.
Meridian 59 is the same way. It's a flat plane, and you got basically sprite walls essentially stuck in a. So it wasn't full. It wasn't. Some people would consider it not full 3D, but Meridian 59 definitely did that opening up the atmosphere sort of thing, and also I think we talked about this before, but it may have had the most players on screen or on the same server, like beating that record prior to any games before it, because every other game was more instanced and limited at the time. So this is where we get into the debate of what's massively, right? What's considered massively.
Yeah, that's going to be a huge debate because I don't even know where to begin to define that. But yeah, Meridian 59, I remember at a minimum being in town and having about like 30 to 40 people around me in the town. And I think at that point in time that was a big deal because we were still on dial-up then. That was pre-internet. That makes me feel really old saying that. But yeah, so up until playing Meridian 59, I think the most players at once I'd ever interacted with was like 4. So having that switch I think was a big deal to me. So I moved to Meridian 59. I beta tested for EverQuest. That was really fun because back in those days, whenever they would do a patch, we're gonna fix a whole bunch of stuff and do a patch. The patches would be like a couple hundred megs, and at that time that was ridiculous to download over a 2400 baud modem. That would take you days to download the patch. So they actually regular like snail mailed out CDs that had the patches. So when you're like every time there was a patch, you would get like 2 or 3 CDs every month with just like a new patch.
Wow.
And like the whole beta testing process took like a year of beta testing because of the time it took them to send out all the CDs and everything. I actually have a really funny story from EverQuest beta. It's one of my favorites. There's a spell called Minor Illusion that the enchanters can cast, and right now it just turns you into like a random object. But in beta, it turned you into whatever object you were closest to. And so the intent was, if you're PvPing or whatever and you're hiding
To
in the
look like the nearest object.
yeah. So if you're
Wow.
PvPing and you wanted to, like, you were trying to hide in a bedroom, you could turn yourself into a second bed and sort of hide it against the corner, or you could turn yourself into like a second dresser drawer and sit in the corner and everything. Well, the front of Felwith, I don't know if you guys remember Felwith. It was the High Elf castle in Feydark. It was like a big yellow castle. Well, the game had Felwith coded to be listed as an object in the game mechanics. So I walked up to Felwith and I cast Minor Illusion, and it turned me into Felwith. And in beta, like right now, when you cast it when it went live and you cast it, it roots you so that you can turn into an object, but then you're stuck. In beta, there wasn't the root, so I turned into Felwith, and I was mobile. So I walked through Feydark as Felwith, and I walked all the way over to Crushbone, and I stood so that the doorway where the entrance to Felwith was matched up perfectly with the Crushbone entrance. And I don't remember if you remember in EverQuest, but there was no mini-map. It took you like a month to get your sense heading up enough to where you could actually tell your directions of which way you were going. And so most of the time, if you had to run from monsters or something, you would just run around the woods until you found some kind of landmark that looked familiar to try to get your bearings, and then you would go from there. And so I just sat there for like 15, 20 minutes, and I listened to how many, like, all the noobs who were running from like bees and stuff were like, oh, there's Felwith, it's safe.
Yeah.
And they would
Completely
run into
throwing 'em off.
Felwith. Yeah.
If you had screenshots, this would literally be like the ultimate fucking troll of all
I
time.
know. I wish I had.
Speaking of trolls, you remember in beta? I don't know if you, because my friend had beta. I never got into it, and then I don't know if he had CDs or not, but he let us come over and play the game. And I remember like at night no one could see anything at night. I think you had to play a troll if you wanted to be able to see at night.
It was miserable.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. I think night elves were okay, but if you were a human, oh man.
Did
But
you
yeah,
say
let's.
night elves in EQ?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I
that's
really,
dark
I need
elves.
to take some of your credit away right now.
Yeah. God, it's been so long since I've played EverQuest, man.
You know, I actually have something that I just want to add on the whole EQ thing. I remember when my dad got a computer, and we had been playing EQ for a couple months, and it's really funny because I remember us upgrading our graphics card to a Voodoo 3000, and that was the shit. Like,
Yep.
like to think about what we're at in terms of cards now, to think about that, like Voodoo 3000, and you were bawling back then.
Yep. I absolutely remember that. Okay, so someone in chat brought up a good point. Uba Scuba says that I wish modern MMOs would turn off the hand-holding mechanics. And I'm really glad that you said that, because that's something that we're going to talk about here a little bit later. But first, I want to move on to our first topic here. We're a little bit behind schedule. So our first topic, sandbox versus theme park. This is a doozy. This is one of those, atheist versus Christian style debates. I'm full disclosure, complete full disclosure. Up until about a year ago, I was a full-on theme park guy. Looking back at it, I can't tell you why. But before we have this discussion, for anyone who's not familiar with the terms, a theme park MMO is something that is very structured. So you can think of it sort of like the game Super Mario Brothers. There's a level, there's a world. So there's a water world. There's a I can't think of the other worlds there. There's a giant world. There's a sand world, and there's a very distinct start to finish. So you start in one theme park, you run through all the quest hubs, you do all the stuff, and then that quest hub sends you to the next quest hub, and you run through all those. So you never actually have to stop and try to figure out what you're trying to do, and I guess that's the benefit to it, is you never have to worry about it. A theme park MMO is more designed to be a world. So here's this world, there's a bunch of crap going on in this world, go do whatever you want to do.
Yeah, and theme park MMOs have another feature in it that they pull at I guess human nature, and that's gambling, right? So there's actually a gambling component to it, that people will roll on something or do something over and over again because they want to win. jackpot or a special item or whatever. And this actually is, I think, one of the key reasons why a lot of normal players, not necessarily maybe hardcore raiders, but normal players that get kind of addicted to this, because that they, just like they would get addicted to, going to casino and gambling money away because they think they're going to win big. So I think theme parks is the analogy is that you get on a ride, you have to be of a certain height or level. You do that over and over again until you move on to the next ride, and then the park just keeps introducing new rides for you to ride on, AKA patches and expansions.
So for the gambling aspect, are you referring to the loot drops from bosses, or what?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So I mean, one of the things that, and I think theme park and sandbox really kind of begin at a certain time in I guess graphical mods or MMOs. So because there's always RPG, right? So there's the RPG aspect, which kind of started the whole thing, starting with MUD, starting with single player games on consoles. So there's the absolute choice in where you want to go and how you want to go about it. There may be a linear path, but the real RPGs, the real fun ones, were ones where you can pick your class and you can choose your stats. Kind of like D&D. So those were like RPGs. I think everything up to a point was RPG until we hit, and there was a lot of like adventuring into no man's land, like Ultima did and Meridian 59 did with the graphics and all that. And then I think when we hit the stage where EverQuest came out, is where even EverQuest, in my opinion, wasn't a full theme park, right? Because there wasn't really any quests, there wasn't really any instance dungeons. You killed the dragons, you waited for things to spawn. It was more MUD-like, multi-user dungeon-like. I think once we hit the later games is when we started getting a real theme park. And then obviously World of Warcraft coined the term, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. Now, what is it about the sandbox? So I don't feel like we've really defined sandbox very well. What is it about the sandbox style as opposed to the theme park that you find most appealing? And this is for either of you.
I'll go first. So a theme park has a bunch of different characteristics, and I don't think it's fair to say it has to have all of them in order to be considered sandbox. So I think that the option to choose, and I'm talking stats or skills, so not necessarily level based or linear on your I pick rogue, and now every other rogue is like me. So World of Warcraft had talents in there and stuff like that to try to give you a choice, but it's an illusion of choice, in my opinion. You're very much like your other rogues. I'm being kind of cruel because there's some choices where I could be like a sword rogue or I could be a dagger rogue, whatever. Well, my point is that the choice is very important. So different degrees of choices. And I think the maximum degree of choices is better, and you'll find them more often in a sandbox game. I think PvP, which wasn't even a term until later, but player versus player has been around was before it was even called player versus player. It was just that's it. It's always in every game. Like Ultima had it. I mean, Eurosby has had it. There was never a there's Care Bear or PvE and there's PvP. There's none of that. It was just a part of the games that were coming out then. So obviously PvP, full loot is definitely something that kind of comes in and out of sandbox games. Being able to change the world, I think, is a really big part of it. Like not just logging in and kind of living in a Groundhog's Day where you do the quest, you save somebody, but yet now they're not saved anymore because the other player has to come and save them. I think that's a huge thing, and one of the things I'm excited about EverQuest Next. And it's hard to implement that, like Shadowbane did it. We'll get into that a little bit with different games, but I don't know, those are some of my main things. Being able to change the world, having a choice, full PvP, and if you can build anything in the game, great. And I should just throw this near at the end here, is a full player-ran economy. I don't want to see any NPCs selling stuff. I want the players to have to make the stuff to sell it.
Wasn't there only one game that ever really did that though, and that was Star Wars, right?
Star Wars Galaxies, I think, did the best.
Galaxies.
So there's downside to it, right? In the very beginning, when I first started the game, it sucked. Like you went to the auction house, and there were literally 20,000 the same rifle, because there was no one making anything advanced in that. Give it a year though, you go back in, it was completely player ran. It was beautiful. I loved every bit of it. I mean, there was different qualities of gear. You could name your own gear, so you could have your own company name. I mean, it was amazing. Other games have done similar stuff to this. I mean, Ultima Online was a game where there was a major emphasis on items, and same with Star Wars Galaxies. I mean, if you lost your rifle, well, you buy a new one. That's how the economy churns. If you bought an item and never bought another one again, then the economy wouldn't do so well, right? So I think that there's been other games that have done it, and I think that is something that I'm hoping to see in EverQuest next. I really hope that they are going to push towards, crafting your own items and making a player market, making your own stamp on your item, maybe even naming it. That'd be nice. But it's just a beautiful thing to see. I'm a sucker when it comes to social experimentation, but when an entire server comes together and makes a market for themselves.
Yeah, I've heard really good things. I never got into crafting in Star Wars Galaxies. I played the game, I loved it. I was a bounty hunter, and it was awesome, but I never got into the actual crafting side of things. But I know people, and I think you said you were this way. I've known lots of people. That's all they did. They were crafters.
I was a full crafter. This is the only game, and you will not catch me say this for any other MMO. I did nothing in that game but craft. I was a droid engineer second, but an architect primarily. So, I mean, beautiful, right? I mean, I had so much fun in that game being those two things. I'd pick up a rifle and I would get killed by something easily. But I needed other players to protect me, and they did, because I joined. I was on the rebel side, and I joined a small town, and we helped build it out. They needed me to rebuild their towers, their cantina, their different things. I had access to all the stuff. I could build land speeders. I could build droids and all that stuff like that, and they needed me. So in return, they protected me and allowed me to continue my business essentially.
Yeah. Lil, do you have a preference between sandbox or theme park?
I don't know, because I haven't really played any sandbox MMOs that have actually, said that. Like, when I think of sandbox, I think of Elder Scrolls and stuff like that, and I haven't played any of these games, so I can't. I have
It's
no
really
opinion.
hard. It's really hard to get around one.
Yeah, well, it's not even that. I want to say that I don't like theme park MMOs, but I spend so much of my time in them. Like, I played WoW for so long, but I'm like an achievement whore and stuff like that. Like, doing stupid, piddly things that don't mean anything, I will do them because I want the achievements and stuff like that. But if games could give up the whole, like, it's like a perfect example of this is trying to talk to the people who game now that didn't play vanilla WoW or stuff like that, like trying to tell them, it took me a year and a half to get my full tier 1 running, Molten Core for 6 months straight, and then hoping to get, waiting on 1 or 2 pieces. Like, people can't wrap their brain around that shit anymore. Everything is handed to them with, people have full gear in a month or something like that. So I'm actually against that, because while vanilla WoW was really, really fun when we were doing that, I would get bored after a month of something. So I would like sandbox type stuff where, stats and stuff meant more than my shiny new chest piece that I just got that is going to get upgraded in the next expansion and becomes completely fucking worthless. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just hard to think about that stuff because I can't wrap my brain around it anymore.
So AJ, you know where you were at, right? Not too long ago, where you didn't know why you played a theme park, and maybe you didn't think of it as a theme park. You thought maybe that was a negative connotation, because it kind of is. But I mean, I think that you really need to experience a really good one. That's a problem, is that there's not many. You've had been playing them before. People get stuck in their ways, where I started in EverQuest, so I must play games like EverQuest. Also, she's a good example of someone who I know personally that gets kind of, into the grinding aspect of a theme park MMO, and almost to the point where it's like, I want to get the next achievement, right? Like you said, achievement whoring. It's a common problem, and that's part of what these game developers want you to do. They want you to get caught onto this and stay into it, keep paying your subs. But to answer like someone in chat who mentioned, well, I don't know about I don't know about sandbox MMO. It sounds like work to me. Oh, crafting all the time sounds like work to me. Well, to be honest, I sometimes feel that way when it comes to theme park MMOs. I think that I'm doing the same thing every single week,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
repeating the
yep,
same
definitely.
task over and over. So it can be, to me, it feels like work.
I just heard
Especially
Lil comment right before we started the show. She was talking about having to get her dailies done. Like to me, yeah, oh, I have to do my dailies. Like, oh,
Because I
it's
want the achievements that are going to be given to me in a
yeah,
couple months now when I get my mount that no one else is going to have. But the problem is that type of content, I do it because I want those achievements. But if they gave me actual content, I would give all that shit up in a heartbeat. I literally have nothing else to do, so I do these things.
right. But then
That's shit.
that's the problem that you run into with the theme park MMOs, and that's where over the past year I've really started to get a better grasp on all this. Is that when they handcraft that theme park content, then that's all there is in the game. It's just that handcrafted content, and then you just do the dailies over and over again until they take the time to handcraft other content. I've been playing a game. It's not technically an MMO. I don't know. Maybe we should have the what defines massively in multiplayer or not conversation. But I've been playing a game called Rust. Sar's been playing it with me. Malice, a couple of people, and it is literally it's the best PvP experience I've had. It's one of the best games I've had in a long time. It's an alpha, and there's hackers and stuff like that are really ruining it right now. But it's an alpha test, so when they get it fleshed out, it's gonna be great. But it's literally like it's some of the most fun I've had in any game in a while, and it's just because we got together. We got to play to do whatever we wanted to do. We built our base the way we wanted to build it. We spent the time just searching the world, finding where we wanted to build it, and then we defend it. And then we go out and try to attack other people's bases. And it's a full loot PvP game. Yeah, and so there is no content. There's no handcrafted content in there, and we end up making our own experience because it's an open world.
Which I think is what echoes with what I think the main appeal to a sandbox MMO is that the content can't be beaten in 5 days. There is no content to beat like that, right? It's all about the players making up their own content. And I guarantee you, thousands of players on a server are going to make way better content if you provide them the right tools in the MMO engine. Than any developer could make for the players themselves, and that's my most the greatest experiences in gaming are due to these player-made scenarios essentially, and problems and situations. I mean, why do people play DayZ? I mean, a great DayZ is. Let's think about DayZ for example. Like Rust, you brought up Rust. DayZ doesn't have building in it. You can't build something, that's. But why do people play DayZ? Purely to play DayZ for the interaction of what's going to happen when I meet the next player in the game. What am I going to do? Am I going to kill them, or am I going to try to be a friendly? Am I a hero? Am I a villain, or am I a bandit or whatever? Am I going to hold them up and take their beans from them? Am I going to tie them up and force feed them a rotten banana? It's these kind of things, these interactions where people will just do this nonstop, and every situation will almost always be different. And there'll always be a what if of what's going to happen. And I mean, I don't know how to express this. I guess, like, if, for example, in Ultima Online, I would never leave the city with my keys in my pocket. I'd make sure that the keys are in a safe spot in the bank or whatever, because you never know what's going to happen when I walk out of the city. I might get attacked or whatnot. The mobs and the AI was terrible. There was no AI. It was just mobs walked around and swung at you, whatever. So there wasn't much to it, except the only thing that kept that thing going was literally what players invented. So I think it's a major pillar in the sandbox MMO criteria.
That actually brings up a good point that people have been saying over and over and over again in the chat. And sorry, I haven't had a chance to address you guys individually, but over and over and over again, I hear, bring back the difficulty, stop doing the hand holding, all that kind of stuff. The interacting with people. As dumb as that sounds, I feel like that's almost like a meta game that has been completely taken out of the game. Like when I played Meridian 59, and I met a person, I would try to make friends. I would see what they were doing. I would, Meridian 59 was a full PvP game. So if you're outside the city and you run into a person, it's like oh, I better be nice to this guy, or he might be way more powerful than me, because and he might kill me and take all my stuff. Um, so like that whole concept of interacting with people, and even not even necessarily in a PvP situation, but even just in a like an EverQuest situation where you would go into a zone and like Karnar's Castle, and you would say, well, I'm looking for a group, or you would ask for a camp check, or you would just being forced to interact with people. And nowadays, what do? You go through your interface, you go to Raid Finder, you say,
Yep.
I'm this role, I'm willing to do this role if I have to. I want to do these
Don't
raids.
talk to
Go.
anybody when you get inside the instance.
Yeah.
Just
How
run.
how
You
many
want to
instances
know
have you
though?
done? Go ahead.
But
Well,
but the thing with that is, I agree because I remember what it was like to stand around a WoW to try to make groups to go do a dungeon, and then you had to run to the fucking dungeon and everything. But that was 10 plus years ago when I just had a job. Now I have 2 kids, and I don't have fucking time to stand around for 45 minutes to get a group to go do something that might take me another hour. Like, I get it's weird because I agree with losing out on the social aspect of things, but then I'm also like, I don't have fucking time for that. So, you know what I mean? Like, I'm torn because I totally agree that it should be that way, but that I'm all about the duty finder when I want to just quick do my daily for the day or whatever it is and then get the fuck off.
So I do want to say that there are appealing things to theme park MMOs. I think what theme park MMOs in general need to focus on is that rating and in game. I think that's you can't really have rating in a theme park MMO. You can introduce player versus player content on a massive scale, but it's not there yet, and most of the times it's been poorly executed. So to really get that massive teamwork effort kind of thing going down in the game, theme park MMOs definitely have that one on the positive for them. I mean, I remember the joys and the pains of running 40-man raids in World of Warcraft. I remember, even to this day, I'd be like, I don't ever want to do a 40-man raid again. But there's definitely some stuff I miss about it. I think the competitive nature of these type of MMO players and these theme park MMOs, I think most of these MMOs fail is to where when it hits end game, they focus a lot on, there's certain percentage breakdown. I think Indoor, and you may know it off the top of your head, that an MMO should have, right? It should be this percentage leveling, this percentage in game. And I think that that's in some PvP maybe, but I think that's really the key seller. I mean, a lot of people play League of Legends to kind of get that player. It's PvP, but they kind of get that quick fix, but they also get to there's a lot of skill involved. And I think players want to be able to get to end game, get to the best gear they can get, make their character the best it can be, maybe figure something out that other guys haven't figured out, and then beat a boss maybe no one else has beaten. And those are the kind of things in a theme park MMO that really shine versus a sandbox MMO. And it's the reason why you'd want to maybe play a theme park MMO. And then I'll say this: there are some people I know people that straight up told me this. That they literally love the leveling aspect of theme park MMOs. They'll level and then quit. I don't know why, but that's their thing.
That's really weird.
now let me ask you this: because as far as I'm concerned, games now are basically the end game, whether it's PvP, whether it's raiding, if you like doing 5-mans, whatever. Do you think that the race to get to the end game is sort of what's causing all of this hand holding, focus on the theme park stuff? And can there be a way to have an end game in a sandbox MMO that, let's say, a levelless sandbox MMO? Can there be an end game, or would it just jump straight to the end game? Like, what do you think?
I think that's what I was trying to get out of the league, because I try to wonder why I like League so much, or why I like MOBA games in general, and I think it's because it gets to end game really fast. That's the one thing I like about sandbox MMOs too, is that you do have to put time into it. Don't get me wrong, you have to put time into it, but sandbox MMOs tend to be more there's no meta, and you kind of pick and choose what you want. Don't get me wrong, there are some people that will make builds, and you'll be able to you'll be able to copy somebody else who's already figured it out maybe, but it should be more rock paper scissors in definition than you would see maybe in a theme park MMO, where you have lots of balancing issues all the time, where there's a lot of nerfs and buffs going across every patch to try to balance things, and never really gets balanced. So I feel like in a theme park, I'm going to bring up a good example, like EVE Online or Age of Wushu. Those are kind of games that fall into the theme park. I mean, EVE is arguably the definitive theme park. I'm sorry, sandbox MMO out there right now. Age of Wushu, for example, just like Eve, you know, you can actually learn skills offline. In Eve, you read a manual, and you know, this would be an example, by the way, of a successful sandbox MMO. There's a few of them, you know, but you know, you'll be able to learn and you'll be able to log offline, and you're learning some book. I remember at one point I was learning how to fly the fastest ship in the game or whatever, the fastest ship type. I think they were called. I don't know, whatever. Anyways, it was going to take like 28 days to learn how to fly and pilot these things. So I remember I actually logged off for 28 days, came back 28 days later, and I knew how to do it. So there's time into it, but maybe not so time consuming. But I will say this, that I think theme park MMOs should have a long leveling curve. I think we should go back to it taking half a year to get to max level.
Yeah, I miss that. I'm not even gonna lie. I miss that. I love that in WoW. And I even leveled, I think it still took us a good, I want to say about 5 months to get to 60 in WoW. And that was after me already playing beta for an entire year.
Yeah.
And still being light years ahead of everybody else in my guild. I think I was like the second 60 in our guild. And that was with holding myself back. And it still took over 5 months. I miss that. I really fucking do.
Yeah. I know EverQuest was especially bad as far as the leveling time. Do you think it's possible for us to go back though? I mean, we've as a genre, we've had our hands held for so long. Do you think that it could ever go back, or maybe even does it have to? Because I don't remember the exact numbers, but at its peak, I remember EverQuest having like 250,000 subscribers total, something like that. Is the fact that everyone is shooting to be the next World of Warcraft hindering the ability for us to just say, okay, you know what, 250,000 subscribers, paying $15 a month, that's a successful MMO. Let's just make like 100 different MMOs, each catering to each different section, and just get 250,000 people playing each MMO, and then now everyone's happy.
I don't know. It's a good question, and I think that it's just a change. So there's been multiple changes in my lifetime for MMO players, all the way back when it was just D&D people playing online games, to now where we have a very like instant gratification kind of player base. And you know, I would say like I think something happened between like vanilla World of Warcraft and the expansion that came out, and I think that expansion, you know,
Burning Crusade.
Yeah, Burning Crusade. I think in that expansion with the low level cap, you know, to get to max out, and the replacement of all your previous gear. Don't get me wrong, Burning Crusade to me was probably one of my favorite expansions. I loved vanilla WoW. But I don't know. I really wish I could.
No. It's funny he says that. He says that he loved vanilla WoW. He hated World of Warcraft. He hated it. He hated it.
Well, I liked the content at the end of the game in vanilla, and the world was huge. And I will say that I had a lot of fun with my guild. I think the guild is a huge part of it. But I think the bottom line is that something happened around that period of time where people started speeding really fast through content. And I don't know what it was, because for me it felt like it took forever to get to max level in vanilla. I feel like it took ages, and then something has happened because it's never happened again. I have now, to this day, have maxed out even somewhat casually, not even like playing nonstop like some people do, like when they want to get to, you know, the max level first in the server or whatever. I mean, it feels like I can max out an MMO week, 2 weeks max. So I don't know what happened. I wish they would go back to the slower leveling. I feel like I felt like I fell more in love with the character and the world. And I felt like I've achieved more. So I think the saying goes with the sandbox MMO is, you know, where it comes into you work a lot in your character. Like Rust would be a good example too. Like you work really hard and you learn all your schematics, and then you feel like you've accomplished something. Whereas in these MMOs, where like it's a 2 week fix, and then I feel like, oh, okay, I can go to the next MMO because I've only spent 2 weeks in this MMO. It's like, you know, playing a single player game and beating it in 2 weeks. You know, so.
Yep, absolutely.
I actually want to go back and talk about rating though. Like the rush to whatever the cap is, that happens, but the rating content, like I actually feel genuinely sorry for game developers at this time, because people go through the content. No, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of hand holding now. There's a lot of let's make this easy for the fucking casuals, yada, yada, yada. But let's be honest. let's say we go back with the caliber of gamer that the three of us are now today, with all the games we played and the way that we know how to play, and went back and did vanilla WoW now, and did Molten Core. We would. I'm not even fucking joking. If we took our guild right now with the people that we currently play with, we could go blow through that in not even a month, right? I think we can all agree with that. Like, we're just better gamers now.
Do you think that everyone is a better gamer now? Like, the genre was so young when Vanilla WoW came out. Really, the only thing people had been used to was EverQuest. And I mean, I was a raider in EverQuest, but that was a completely different scene. That
Click
was
one button over and over. I mean, warriors, for example, in EverQuest were like a one button character.
Yeah, and not only that, but it was like what 80 people per raid, something like that. 100. It was huge.
Oh my god, I can't even think about that now.
Well, this is what
we're so used to 25 man
Yeah.
and 10 mans now. It's crazy to think about that shit.
Yeah, and this is what I am, man. And I actually think I can combine the two conversations we were just having. When you had it required that many people for a raid, most of the guilds, at least on my server, most of the guilds didn't have 80 raiders who were on every Saturday morning ready to raid. And so essentially the way that the raids would work is you would have your server first guild or whatever, and they would be like, okay, well, we're going to raid this on Saturday morning. And so they'd post on some forums and they'd spread the word. And so they would start at like 8 a.m. Saturday morning, and they would talk to the other guilds on the server, and they would just talk to random high level people. And then after about like 6 or 7 hours of recruiting and talking to other guilds, you would have a force big enough to go make an attempt. Now, it would take you like another hour to coordinate things like healing rotations, where you'd have to, because there was no voice speak back then, so you'd have to have, like, when a cleric did their big heal on the tank and it was time for the next cleric to be up in queue, you'd have to have a macro where it says, I've used this spell, that next up is this person, and then there'd be another macro. But the point that I'm getting at here is, all the way up until World of Warcraft, I think the concept of a true hardcore guild, I mean, maybe Fires of Heaven, but other than, like, in general, having like a server first guild, and having a server first structure
Wasn't a mainstay concept, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
because the only way that you could kill these guys was by getting multiple guilds together. World of Warcraft with 40-man raiding, and then especially Burning Crusade with what was the tower that was like what, a 10-man raid? And it's been a long
Karazhan.
Yeah.
Karazhan, yeah.
Which was actually one of the better raids
The
that I
Guild
think everybody
Destroyer.
agreed with.
Yeah.
It was. Guild Destroyer.
Guild
it really
Destroyer.
was.
Yeah, exactly. But even the 40-man raids, 40-man raids. I loved 40-man raids. Maybe that's just nostalgia, but
It might be.
yeah. But even 40-man raids, like that was a small enough number where you could somehow manage 40 people and have that be your guild. And so you could have a server first guild. You could have my guild killed this boss third on the server or whatever. And I think that was really the beginning of the whole rush. So whenever Burning Crusade came out, you've had this actual competitiveness in the end game, which didn't exist pre-vanilla WoW. And so I think that competitiveness is what drove I have to rush to max level as soon as possible, because the thing that matters is getting back into that competition.
Yep.
And I think eventually the casual people started catching whiff of that, and they wanted it in too.
I don't know the answer to this. I mean, you brought up maybe different kind of MMOs. Maybe there's two types of theme park MMOs. I don't know, but you're right. I mean, at one token, I'm like, those players would hate the longer leveling curve. I don't know. The player base has changed. I don't know if they can ever go back. I don't know if they can ever accept long, drawn-out leveling to get to what they really want, which is the in-game stuff. Like, I myself would rather just click a button, just hit max level, and start doing whatever I need to do to get the gear I need to do, and then get into a raid content and start banging bosses, killing them with my buddies. So that's what I'd get out of theme park MMO now. But back in the day, I used to level. So I don't know.
That's what I was saying before about how I feel sorry for developers. We are our own worst enemy now, because we want to be the first, and we want to do this, and we want to be the best. We blow through the content so fast, and then we get pissed off that we're done, and it's like, it's not intended to be done like that. You know what I mean? Like, and then people rag on these companies. It's like, it's not their fault that you're fucking rushing through the content because you want to be the first to down this and that. Like, I don't think people give the companies the benefit of a doubt anymore at all. They just rag on them and say there's not enough to do. Well, it's like, maybe you should fucking calm your tits for a second and enjoy the content. Stop clicking through all the quests, and you know what I mean? Like, it's hard, and no game is ever going to be able to I don't know, satiate. I don't even know the word I'm looking for. The way that people game now, like nobody cares about the content. They just, like he said, I want to click a button, I want to get to the end, and I want to start raiding. And then the raid content, if it's too easy, then they're bitching that there's still nothing to do because they want to be the first on the server to get the content done. So, you know, it's just, it's like a damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing with MMOs now, because I just feel bad for them because I don't know. Like a lot of them, like ESO, I genuinely want to play this game, and it's already got a bad rap on so many levels for so many things, and it's just like you can't win. You cannot win. And one of the things is, if the next MMO that just comes out and stops saying it's going to reinvent the wheel, that's going to be the one that fucking succeeds, because everybody keeps coming out and saying they're going to do it better and they're going to do it newer and it's going to be great, and then it fails because they
That's
don't
why,
live up to
in
that.
my opinion, sandbox MMO is where to go next. I think
Gotta.
it has to go. It has to go back to this kind of a really well done AAA sandbox MMO with money behind it. 'Cause I think that's the major problem with sandbox MMOs is if it's not coming from Korea and Japan and China, which those guys, by the way, were huge fans of Ultima Online, which I think is why they make games like Lineage and stuff like that, where it tends to be more about PvP and changing the world and, you know, and having an effect on it. But yeah, I think the next one's going to be it has to be a AAA sandbox made by a big named company, long development period. You know, give it what it needs to get done. Have a good engine, compete with the theme park MMOs in that area, but allow players to make their own content. Give them a really good system to do that. And I know I'm kind of like describing what I hope to be as Landmark, but you know,
Yeah,
it
for
could be
sure.
another sandbox MMO too. So.
Another thing companies need to do is the only thing, like, WoW in its state now, just it can go fuck itself. Okay, I'll be honest. But a lot of companies, I know that they have shareholders and people that said you got to get this game out. A lot of these companies need to take a note from Blizzard. It's done when it's fucking done, because how many MMOs have come out in the past 3 years that have been pushed through and then they fail within 6 months to become free to play, and then
Star
that's it.
Wars.
Exactly. They have got, like, we get it. You want to make your money and you got to get your shit out. Look at Blizzard. Like, all the things people want to recreate WoW and do that. That's the one thing that these companies need to do, is they need to fucking be like, it's done when it's done, and stop fucking pushing these games out before they're meant to be out, because they're fucking themselves.
I will say this though, and I think we do need to move on, or we're going to be ending soon. But Shadow Bane was an example of a game that was in a long development period. It was in a very long development period where they were just too long. And what happened is that when they came out, they were too far behind their major competitors at the time, which was going to be World of Warcraft. And I mean, the graphics was subpar, the UI was bad. I mean, it just because it was great 3 or 4 years when they were starting to make the game. So I think that the MMOs nowadays are done. They're much faster in development. I mean, let's face it, these betas are they're basically previews of the game.
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
You know,
But that's another problem, though. People get into these betas and they quote unquote test the game out to see if they're gonna play it. They don't fucking beta test it and go, this is wrong and this is wrong. And if they actually told the developers, if mass amounts of people who are beta testing these games actually told them what was wrong, maybe they would fix it. But that's not what fucking happens. People play a game, they go, this sucks, and then they don't log into the beta. They don't actually help the game at all. They don't care. That's a big problem, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, the answer to the thing, I think the future of MMOs is going to be in some sort of sandbox MMO. I think theme park MMOs are going to continue to focus on bringing back some sort of nostalgia effect from another MMO, try to recapture some of that, I don't know, I guess, appeal. Sorry, I had to sneeze. I'm like, so. Yeah, I think that's where the future is going to be, where it's going to be a sandbox MMO. I think the theme parks are going to try to trying to keep reinvent the wheel or try to pull players in a nostalgia effect. I hear that with WildStar is trying to bring back that vanilla WoW feel because that's where most of it, they feel like the big bang or big boom, what made World of Warcraft so successful was that period of time in that game. So I think they're trying to bring that back, maybe with some long leveling, like I mentioned earlier.
Yep. Well, I'm going to end on this right before we go to break. You brought up EverQuest Landmark. I got to be honest with you. I'm a huge Landmark fan. I'm a Trailblazer. I am all in. Sony, let's do this. I don't think Landmark is going to be the next big MMO that pulls people in. I do, however, have high hopes for EverQuest Next proper, like the actual EverQuest Next game that's not coming out for a few years. And one of the big reasons why I'm really excited for that game is because there's no levels. So you go in, you train your skills. It's going to be a lot like Star Wars Galaxies, like the original, before the combat upgrade. And I think it's essentially it's going to take out that whole aspect of I have to rush to the end, because there's not even, I mean, as much as I love raiding, there's not even going to be raiding in that sense. It's going to be when a dragon appears, it's going to be like a world event, and then your guild will have to rush together to go find the dragon and try to kill it. And
Shit,
so,
are we bringing back call lists? Because that's what that sounds like.
yeah, actually, probably. Yeah, I mean, but no, I don't think that the call lists were needed because the dragon or whatever would only spawn like once every 36 hours, and so you had like a little guy camped out there waiting for that spawn to come up, and whenever he did spawn, everyone had to go and be the first person to do it. The way that I'm understanding what they're planning on doing for EverQuest Next is that this stuff's all going to be random. The dragon isn't going to spawn in the same place twice. It might not even be a dragon next time. Maybe there's a troll king that comes and invades a city, and these things are supposed to be happening all the time. So what I envision a raid being for a raiding guild is you're going out, you're hanging out, maybe you are just crafting until something happens that night because 2 or 3 events are going to happen every night, or maybe you go and you attack some like troll stronghold, which then triggers the AI to say, well, now the king is going to be pissed off at you, so now there's going to be a war band that comes out, and that's your rating, is you doing things to try to force the NPCs to come back at you with a higher level, something that will have good loot.
I think the AI is really key.
Yes.
I think we're at the point now with technology where we can pull off that kind of AI. If they can pull off that AI, the game is going to be utterly amazing. Nothing's going to be like
sounds
it.
amazing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we are way behind schedule, but let's go ahead and take our 5-minute break, then we'll come back and we'll discuss nostalgia. All right, we're back in 5.
Awesome.
Okay, and we're back. How was your break, everybody?
Good.
I
We're
actually
way
had
past schedule.
Yeah,
Frost on
we're way
bringing
past
Starbucks in.
schedule. For you guys watching, we're gonna try to keep these to about an hour in the future, but this is our first one, so we didn't know exactly how much content to schedule up. So we'll do this real quick and then we'll wrap up. I want to talk about the nostalgia effect a little bit. This is something I've gone back and forth on a lot. And essentially what we're talking about is, we've already had several instances of it here today already. When I think back to 40-man raiding, I think of so many awesome moments. Like, my favorite moment in 40-man raiding ever is when there was a sword in Azure Song Mageblade, I think. And Eric wanted it for, like, I don't know, 17 months. Like, that's all he ever talked about. And it was before tokens. God, I hate tokens so much. So if you wanted an item, you had to be there on the night that it dropped, and you had to win the roll or the DKP or whatever. So he had been wanting it forever. And I go in, and we both rolled for it, or both DKP'd or whatever, and I got it. And that was just my favorite moment, just taking it from Eric and watching him cry.
You're an asshole.
Yeah, I know.
We lost a viewer now. Great.
Oh yeah, sorry, Eric. But so things like that, like that's what I think about when I think back to it. In reality, I'm sure 40-man, just the coordination between getting the 40 players together, making sure they know what they're doing, establishing class leaders, having the class leaders being able to micromanage their subset and deciding who goes in, who goes out for the night. I'm sure it was a pain in the ass, but so the nostalgia effect is, looking back with the rose-colored glasses. But lately though, I've been looking at this, and a lot of things I feel like maybe they're not so nostalgic. A lot of people in the chat were talking tonight about how MMOs have become too much hand-holding, they've been too easy. We've talked about the leveling curve and how leveling has become too easy and it should be moved back. So I want to get you guys' take on this. Like, do you think that the nostalgia effect is really as much of a placebo as we thought as it was, or are you guys now starting to think that maybe some of those games were actually doing a lot of things better than what the genre does now?
Okay, so to be honest, I think the nostalgia effect is not necessarily. So we get fooled into that, like, oh man, I like my golden day, period of time where my favorite period of time in gaming was Ultima Online. But why, right? So there's actually Ultima Online shards, like player ran ones, and I've done it a couple times. I went back and I played it again, and it's fun, but it's not the same. And I think the nostalgia is really the scenario that you're in at the time with those players, your friends, or whatever that you're
It's the
going through.
people.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
people.
It
And you
is
can't
100%.
reinvent that on command. So you'll get disappointed when you try to go back when you think it was just the game that did that for you, when in reality it was the players in the game that may have done that for you. I mean, even the PvE stuff that like, what if there was no Eric trying to get your Azure Songblade or whatever? You may have liked that moment less. So
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. There was a time in Meridian 59, and this is my favorite Meridian 59 memory. I didn't know the guy. I've never met the guy, and I had only seen him a handful of times on the server. But I'll never forget this guy's name. His name was Rip and Tell. That was his name, and he was like the most hardcore PvP person on the game. And like I said, Meridian 59 was a game where if you left town, PvP was on, and it was full loot. And so it didn't matter. You could be level 100, you could go kill a level 2 guy if he steps outside of town. So I remember there was this guy Rip and Tell, and he would wait outside town for noobs to come out, and he would go kill him. And then there would be another noob come out, and he would kill him. And he literally, like, it got to like the point where he killed 20 people, and so people in town were complaining about it. So other high-level people came, and they were being white knights about it, and they were like, well, we're gonna go fight him. So they went and fought him, and then he killed them. And then so they called and got a whole bunch of their friends, and then it's something ridiculous, like 10-1, and so he was like, okay, fuck this, I'm out. And so he goes running, but he didn't log off or anything, and so the White Knight team, whatever, established, they're like, okay, well, we're gonna make a posse to go hunt him down, and you guys go to this forest, and you guys go check this town, and literally, it became a server-wide event to hunt this guy down, and eventually, like 4 or 5 hours later, they found him, and someone killed him and took his stuff, but like. That kind of, man, I really miss that kind of interaction, And that's a little bit of the best point, you know, and I think sort of touched on this too, is the nostalgia effect being the people. I feel like the games nowadays take that out so much. It's just there is no interacting with people like that anymore.
I'm gonna play devil's advocate on the whole nostalgia thing because I think Reem actually brought it up. Um, but people tend to have the nostalgia effect when they remember the good things over the bad. I remember some of the bad things in 40-man rating. I mean, let's be honest. Even I consider myself a shit player if I compare myself to how I am now to back then. But I was still light years ahead of some of the assholes that we used to carry through those raids. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like a handful of paladins. I just think off the top of my head. They were buff bots. They were 5-minute buff bots to put up whatever their
Malice for
shit.
sure.
You know, like we had people like I'm just gonna drop names like Shizzlebizzle. Does everybody remember Shizzlebizzle?
Yeah.
She posted her picture on the forum, and she was a cute girl. She's probably like 17, real cute. Bitch used to go AFK any fucking time she wanted
Halo
during
Crow
the
used
raid,
to jerk off to her.
and nobody gave a shit because she was cute. Like those kind of things, like and Flowinky, fucking worst paladin North America, period. The guy was drunk half the fucking time, and yet we still brought him because if we kicked him out of the guild, all his other friends, it's just going to trickle down, and all these people used to quit. And like that's the nostalgia that I don't miss because we had to carry so many fucking people that shit doesn't fly anymore. Like if you're shitty, you're not in my guild, you're not in my raid group, you're not, you know what I mean? It's like that's the kind of nostalgia that I could do away with. Like I don't care about that shit. Like I've grown up as a gamer, and I'm not.
But it made it so much it made everything so much more interesting.
It gave us headaches and made us stay up for 2 hours every night after raid time because we had to deal with drama because so and so is not pulling their weight and shit like that. Like that's the kind of shit that the nostalgia will make me hate, and I never want to deal with that shit again.
Okay, but to be fair, is that the fault of the games? Or is that just you know, we've all grown as gamers, and you know, it's kind of like I can't believe we can compare it to this. It's kind of like being in love. When you're 15, a guy will put up with a lot of shit for a girl. You know, like he'll spend a shit ton of money. He'll go watch stupid girly TV shows, and you know, I'll go see Twilight with her because she's cute. Blah blah blah. Blah. And, you know, if you're still single in like your 30s. And you go on a date, you're like, look, you know, I'm this, and this. I don't have time to deal with you if you're gonna act this way. You know, I'm done. You know, you got to be like this. You know what you want because you've dealt with the crap. And so is it that the games were bad back then, and that's what you're remembering, or is it that you've just grown so much as a gamer that now you know because you've dealt with so many shizzlebizzles that you're not going to deal with any more shizzlebizzles anymore?
I think so. I'm just saying, like, people talk about the nostalgia, and they always talk about only the good stuff. And there's a lot of, like Reem said, people will glaze over the bad stuff because they only remember the good things. But there's a lot of shit that happened that you're like, I'm not putting up with anymore.
I think the fact that it is a memory is something to mention. There's a lot of stuff you don't remember because it wasn't worth remembering. So the fact that you remembered the Shizzlebizzles and the other
Maybe because
people,
I'm a chick, I remember Shizzlebizzle. Fuck that bitch.
everyone remembers Shizzlebizzle. Everybody remembers Shizzlebizzle.
I remember
that time period.
Shizzlebizzle.
Yeah, everybody does.
Yeah.
I mean, Halo Crow had a photo of her under his bed, so I mean, like, he remembers her.
I don't even think Halo Crow was in the guild when Shizzlebizzle was.
I don't care if he was; he would have one.
Halo, when he joined, actually went back to our old forum archives and found the picture and printed it out.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
She would AFK in Molten Core, and literally, like, I'd be the only one mad. I'd be like, everyone's like, "Oh, it's just Shizzlebizzle,"
Yeah,
and she'd come back. She'd come back and be like, "Yeah, I just had sex with my boyfriend," you know, and everyone was, you know, vicariously living through him, I guess, at that point. I don't know, but nostalgia is, I think, a memory of how things were, right? And you want that back, right? Because it was
But
great.
you want to talk about good nostalgia? Like, even to this day, nobody can convince me otherwise. The most awestruck time I've ever been in my gaming career is fucking beating Ragnaros for the first time. Nothing has ever lived up to that, ever. That first fucking time, and he had the amazing death animation. Like, most people remember that as being, like, this is the reason why I fucking game. This is the reason why I spent 6 months in this dungeon. When can we have that feeling back? Because I've downed hard bosses since, and it's never even remotely come close to that feeling where you're almost on, like, you're tearing up, like, you're just so, like, I can't believe we did this. And the fact that it was 40 people that you had to fucking get together to do it, it wasn't just 10 man. Like, I get it, some people are like, hard mode Lich King was that for them because it was so fucking hard. But let's be honest, getting 10 people and 25 people, no matter how hard the content, is a lot different than fucking coordinating 40 fucking people. You know,
hard modes ruined the whole thing for me, because it was just like you saying, like when you killed Ragnaros, that was a big deal, and you could say I just killed Ragnaros. You know that I owned that.
I beat World of Warcraft.
Yeah, exactly. That's a big thing. And I'm gonna hark back to the Old Republic, which unfortunately was when I was the most hardcore of a raider I've ever been. And we were in like a top 10 world guild. Like one of our kills was second worldwide. And those actually meant something when the game first came out. Like game launch, the raids were hard. Being able to down that kind of stuff was actually a significant accomplishment. The game started going downhill after that, and then what did they do? They started adding the different modes, and they actually took it one step farther. So at that point in time, then it was like, okay, pretty much anybody could do the normal mode. They had a nightmare mode, which was a little bit harder, but it wasn't really a challenge. But then they added story mode, and that to me is killing the genre. As far as rating is concerned, that's killing the whole MMO genre to me. Is the concept of a story mode. And story mode was essentially you could take 10 random people, and they could be completely terrible players. And you could still make it through the entire raid, start to finish, kill all the bosses, see all the storylines, see all the content. You wouldn't get as good of gear, but you would still get better gear than what you would get in 5-man dungeons. And that takes so much away from that success of being able to say, I killed Ragnaros. Well, okay, everyone on the server killed Ragnaros. Oh, well, I killed Ragnaros hard mode. Okay, whatever. Like, yeah, it's still a little bit of bragging rights, but to be able to say I've done something, and because I've done something, I've seen something on the server that no one else has seen. That's a big deal. I don't know if you guys remember back in the early vanilla days, but maybe I'm remembering it wrong. But I think there was only maybe 4 or 5 guilds that were even.
Yeah, we were the 5th guild on the server, and that was huge. Like people talk about World First, like even being 5th was like fucking like you just fucking beat it first NA. Like that's how big of a deal it was back then.
Yeah, and nowadays, like every
you're not first,
guild.
You're nothing.
Yeah, but now everyone does it, and there I forget when exactly it happened, but there was this shift in the industry where the developers were thinking, we build all this content, but we only build it for like the top 10% of players.
I can tell you when it happened.
Okay,
when it happened at the end of BC with the raid. I can't even remember Sunwell. Like
yes.
2.2% of the fucking population saw it because everybody was still in, I don't even remember what the previous SSC and Tempest Keep. So I think Blizzard is the one that really pushed it because they were like, we just spent all this money making all this content and nobody fucking even got to see it. So that's when, what is it, Wrath that came out next, where they were like, we want everybody to see the content now because we spent the money to make it. And I can agree with that, but if I use the word casual loosely because I consider myself casual, but hardcore in skill. But when we say casual, it's a negative connotation. But anyways.
Okay, well here I want to just step in real quick because there's some dollar signs involved with the decision making on these MMO developers. The majority of their player base are not the top percent that can see a particular piece of content because they have the savvy to do it. No, in fact, it's the lower end, right? So story modes is an answer to 2 things, I think. One is they allow players to be able to see the content that they pay for, right? They pay for it per month. They want to give them what they're paying for. The other side, I think, it also tries to get those people out of the hardcore modes. Now players can't say, "Oh well, my guild won't take me to hard mode this and thus because I'm not good enough." I pay money for this. Why can't I go and see it? So I think it kind of gives them a little bit of an out for a hardcore raiding guild to not to kick somebody, or to maybe not. Let me say the hardcore raiding guild, maybe like a middle ground guild that's got some baddies in there, and they want to maybe kick them out, or maybe not have them all come along, but go see story mode, because then you'll get to see what we see. Hey, but I don't know. I think that the hand holding isn't going to go away. I think these developers are not brave enough to do that, to go and make something that's extremely hard, that only a certain percentage will be able to see it. You got what developers do, where they'll release content that's really hard, maybe even impossible, and then maybe and that's like an invisible wall, right? And then they'll slowly start to nerf the content to the point where everyone can then see it.
I actually agree with that thinking, but I think that the nerfs come out too soon. Like, I agree, you pay your $15 a month, I don't care how bad you are, you should eventually be able to see these bosses. But if it takes you 6 months or the next expansion, that's not my fucking problem. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. But to get back to what Sarv was saying, the reason why they don't do that is because the people are like, well, I paid my money, and so that means I deserve to see this content at the same time that everyone else does. And that I feel like that mentality. This is a little off topic, but I am adamantly against free-to-play MMOs because
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
if they were just completely free to play, which would be absolutely ridiculous, then okay, fine. But the whole concept of, well, I'm paying money, so I deserve something in return, is it kills it for me. I mean, if it's just cosmetic kind of things,
Yeah.
Okay, cosmetic stuff and whatever, that's fine. But when you start talking about like EverQuest, like I play on the live EverQuest servers now every once in a while, and you can pay like $20 to get a mount. You can pay, I think it's $1 to buy a clarity potion and give yourself a clarity buff for 4 hours. That kind of thing, that ruins the game as far as I'm concerned. And I think that's that same mentality of, I'm paying my $15 a month, so I deserve this, I need this, I should be getting
Well,
this in return.
the fact is, a free-to-play MMO needs to make money some way.
The problem,
Yes,
though,
I
is the
understand.
pay-to-play MMOs, like, all the ones that are out there. Um, the problem is the developers and the people running the fucking thing need to put their foot down. And when people are like, I deserve this because of X, Y, and Z, be like, no, you pay $15 a month to have access to a game, to have stable servers that are up, that only go on maintenance once a week, yada, yada, yada. That is what you're fucking paying for.
Yep.
You're not paying for anything else. And nobody puts their foot down and says that. They bend backwards and fucking grab their ankles. You know what I mean?
Well, the light of the tunnel maybe is that, and Eric seems to think that there's no way a developer can self-publish. Well, I kind of disagree. We'll see. Time will tell, because with the with the player-backed funding that we see in a lot of these Kickstarter campaigns that are occurring with different games. I mean, we're talking like games being really made. For the players and by players, and no, CEOs involved and all that. I mean, a good example would be like Blizzard, right? So Blizzard was known to make really great games, right? Real solid games, lots of fun. Because they were mostly just their own entity, and then when Activision bought them, or bought majority shares, or whatever they did, they teamed up with them. What happened? We got a lot of this, EA-esque sort of like tactics. I mean, there's even jokes of like, oh, Guitar Hero is going to be in World of Warcraft eventually. So I mean, I think that the Kickstarter campaigns that have been going on, I think that they're actually a good possibility that we may see a really great game come out. I know Richard Garriott, who I'm a big fan of, is coming out with he doesn't own the rights to Ultima anymore. Origin does. So he kind of has to, he owns the rights to his name, which is Lord British, but he doesn't, that persona, but he doesn't own anything else. So he's actually making the game. I think it's called the Avatar or something like that. And I mean, it looks okay in the graphic department, but apparently it's going to be a really nice kind of Ultima-esque kind of sandbox MMO, where you can play both in single player and go into a multiplayer setting on sort of like a ESO kind of mega server kind of feel. There's the Star Citizens, which you could debate if it's massively multiplayer or not. Again, with more of a single player, and you zone and you're in a multiplayer mega server kind of thing again. So I mean, there are MMOs, quote, being made by Kickstarter campaigns where there's no there's no major distributor that's involved with the distribution of the game, and thus control over the timeline and what goes into it and what they feel is going to make them the most profit. So there's possibility of developers publishing their own really well done MMOs in the future.
Especially if we go back to my idea of earlier, which is if we stop saying it is the goal of every MMO to try to be the next World of Warcraft. It is the goal of every MMO to get 11 million subscribers. If we take a step back and we say, you know what, that's crazy. That's like saying I have to make a movie that everyone in the entire world that likes movies is going to love. You can't do that. There's sci-fi movies, there's thrillers, there's love stories. So if we take a step back and from trying to make the next WoW, and we say, okay, well, we're going to have a Kickstarter, we're going to raise 5 million, 10 million, 22 like Star Citizen, and we're going to get 250,000 subscribers, and that is a success. And then we're going to get the feedback from those subscribers, and we're going to tailor the game to the people to the customers. If we wind up having 30 different good MMOs like that are all custom tailored to their individual populations, I think that's a win. I really think that trying to make something that is going to get 11 million people, I think that's why you see so many MMOs failing, and I think that's why Elder Scrolls is going to fail. I really do. I know we're not going to talk too much about Elder Scrolls, but I think that it's
another episode.
Yeah, definitely another episode for that one.
Yeah, because I'm really passionate about that, and I know it's going to suck.
Yeah.
So to kind of conclude, my opinion is that we're never going to get the nostalgia back from our previous games. We're just going to have to get into an MMO where we're going to hope for an MMO that comes out that will foster the kind of atmosphere that brought forth those feelings that we had in the previous MMO. And I think that hunting down for nostalgia, you're almost always going to fall short. And by the way, I just want to give a shout out to an MMO that we haven't mentioned at all, and this that was a good contender and a good part in the MMO history. That was Asheron's Call, which was also another game that came out. I personally was a competitor with Ultima, so I played Ultima mainly, but I did play Asheron's Call. I feel like they had a lot of great ideas. I think a lot of these ideas would fit perfectly, and they didn't age at all, meaning they'll fit perfectly in a future MMO. And really bring forth quality gaming out of it. Whereas you could argue that a lot of these PvE mechanics that we see in previous MMOs can't really be brought to a new MMO. It's just not going to work. Everyone's seen it before. So, but I think nostalgia needs to be invented, which is kind of contradicts the word. But you need to kind of experience it. I think that we need that kind of MMO that can bring that forth to us again. Either be it a theme park or a sandbox or a mixture of both. Right?
Yep. I think that's a wonderful way to bring it all back together. And on that, I think we're going to call this a night. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm sorry that we went over for so long. I promise in the future we're going to try to keep this down to an hour so that it's easily consumable. If you guys have any feedback, you can check us out on the MMOshow.com. Leave some comments on our forums. You can also check us out on Facebook /MMO Show, Twitter /MMO Show, YouTube /MMO Podcast, because apparently someone took MMO Show and isn't using it for anything. And that's it. Let me know if you guys have any suggestions, questions, comments, concerns, and we will see you again next Sunday at 11 o'clock Eastern. Have a good one.